Hi, my name is Parastu Imami, and I'm the host of The Road to Success for Your Highly Sensitive Child. This podcast is about empowering parents of highly sensitive children to nurture their child's unique personality trait and create a path to success. Our podcast provides guidance, insights, and support to help you unlock your child's full potential, fostering resilience, confidence, and a bright future. If you're new to my podcast, please go back and listen to episodes 1 and 2 because they provide information on high sensitivity that all subsequent episodes will build upon. If you skip these episodes, you won't get as much out of this and all subsequent episodes. To book a private coaching session with me, please visit my website at parentinghsc.com. If you're looking for a talented portrait photographer, I highly recommend Laurie Bishop of Become Studios. Check her website out at www.becomebeseen.com. You can find this link in my podcast description as well. For a limited time, if you use the promo code PARIS2100, you will get a $100 credit towards photo purchases. Today's episode is aimed at a crucial group in our children's lives, their teachers. We'll be diving into how teachers can support highly sensitive children in the classroom and the meaningful role teachers play in setting highly sensitive children up for success. We'll talk about what high sensitivity looks like in a classroom, how teachers can help highly sensitive students feel understood and valued, and practical techniques that make the classroom a welcoming, safe space for every type of learner. So if you're a parent or a teacher, this episode is for you. Let's jump right in. So first, let's talk about understanding high sensitivity in the classroom. So what does it mean to be a highly sensitive child in the classroom? For those who might not be as familiar with high sensitivity is a personality trait. It is genetic, so you're born with it, and it affects roughly 20% of children. Basically, there are 4 components to being highly sensitive. The first one is depth of processing. This means that you're very analytical. You process all the details. You process everything from the people, the place, the energy, everything, every aspect that you could think of. Highly sensitive people take it into account when they're processing information. When they're taking things in, they're taking it in at a very deep level. So the second thing is that they get overwhelmed easily because they're taking in a lot from their environment and they're taking in, they're feeling a lot inside of themselves. Then it's easy for them to get overwhelmed if they don't know how to basically regulate their nervous system, or otherwise, in a simple term, it's regulating your emotions. And then the third aspect is that they have a very strong empathy. And the fourth aspect is that they are sensitive to outside stimuli. So think about bright lights, loud sounds, the energy in a classroom, for example. If there's a lot going on, it could be scratchy clothing. It could be anything that is like related to our senses, all 5 of our senses. You don't have to be sensitive to all 5 of your senses, but you need to have one sensitivity. And in order to be highly sensitive, you need to have all 4 of these components. So in a nutshell, that's what high sensitivity is about. So the classroom can sometimes be overwhelming for highly sensitive children, and this would affect their learning because if they're overwhelmed, what happens is that they go into the fight or flight response, and their logical brain is no longer functioning as it normally would. This happens to all of us, not just highly sensitive children. But when we go into the fight or flight response, our logical brain doesn't work as it should. So the way teachers often see sensitivity show up, it might seem like shyness or nervousness, or sometimes they even think the child is rude because they're not responding. But and if the child is sensitive, then it's not that they're shy, for example. So let's talk about shyness. It's not that the child is shy, it's just that the child is taking in everything that is going on in that in particular environment. So they may look like they're shy or slow to warm up, but in reality, it's just that's how their depth of processing works. It takes time for them to process everything because they're taking it in at a very deep level and analyzing it to the nth degree. Another thing is nervousness, right? The child could seem that they're nervous when they're highly sensitive, but it could be many, many different things. It depends on the context. So let's take the example of the child is nervous because he or she is asked to go and write something on the chalkboard, and everybody's watching that child. For a highly sensitive child, they don't do as well, or they may seem nervous when all eyes are on them, when they're being watched as they're performing. So that's why they may come across as being nervous. The other thing is when a teacher is asking a question and they're not responding, it's not because they're trying to be rude or they don't want to participate. It's just that they're probably feeling overwhelmed or unsafe. It depends on the context. And by unsafe, I don't mean just physically unsafe. It could also be emotionally unsafe. So highly sensitive people tend to be very, very perfectionist. So if they think that they could make a mistake, or if they're not 100% sure that they know the answer, this might affect them. That they might become overwhelmed by it. Just because we want to do our best and we want to perform at our best. And unfortunately, there is a tendency for highly sensitive people, highly sensitive children, to be perfectionists. So these are some things that the teacher can observe to see if this is the case. And if the child is highly sensitive, then the teacher can do a lot to help that child out and bring the best out in that child. It's just that they need a different way of learning, right? So the teacher just needs to be careful and be cognizant of how they are treating that child, how they're talking to them. But we'll get into that later on. So just make sure that as a teacher, it's a win-win situation, because if you learn about high sensitivity, that's 20% or more of the children that are in your class that could be highly sensitive. So it's a win-win situation, because if you know how to approach them in the right way, then the student can feel secure, and they can feel included, and they could feel understood. And if they're feeling those positive feelings, and then they're obviously going to be doing much better in the classroom, and they would make it much easier for you as a teacher. So it really is a win-win situation for both the students, the teachers, and the other students that are in the classroom. So let's talk about what role teachers play. So this is such an important question. Teachers are some of the most influential people in a child's life. And this is especially true for highly sensitive kids. And this is especially true for kids that are in their formative years, so up to 10 years old. So a teacher's response to a child's sensitivity can make a world of difference on how they see themselves, how they feel about learning, and how confident they are in their own abilities. And the biggest role teachers have is that of an observer and supporter, because highly sensitive kids may not always voice their discomfort because they want to be accommodating and they don't want to be disruptive. So teachers will need to observe and really watch the highly sensitive child to see if there's something that they're feeling uncomfortable about. And so that they can really create an atmosphere where the child feels recognized, understood, safe, and included. So, if as a teacher, for example, you recognize that the child is overwhelmed because you know this child is highly sensitive, then there's certain things that you could do to help that child. One of the things that I teach is somatic practices, for example. So I teach parents of highly sensitive children to teach their child about various somatic techniques that can help them regulate their nervous system, so that can help them regulate their emotions. So if the teacher knows about this, they can either use somatic practices, or they could use other supportive and take other supportive actions that help the child regain a sense of calm and focus. And then also, as a teacher, you can be a role model for all the students, not just the highly sensitive students, but all students, to model empathy and inclusivity, because by fostering a classroom culture that values diversity in temperament, teachers can encourage other students to accept and respect one another's differences. And this includes sensitivity. Because, like I said before, the child can't do anything about their sensitivity. This is a genetic personality trait that they're born with, and it cannot be taken away from them. This is something that they're born with. They're going to have it for life. So the child is not trying to be difficult. Believe me, when they're in the overwhelmed state, they are extremely uncomfortable themselves. So that's why it's so important for teachers to also be part of the equation for a highly sensitive child to thrive in life. So let's talk about some practical tips that teachers can use with highly sensitive children. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list. There's probably a lot more tips that I could give you if I had more time, but I'm just going to give you the top ones that are important for you to learn. So for highly sensitive children, if they are sensitive to loud sounds, then it becomes very important to create a quiet space for them. And this could be just a place in your classroom where would be calming and kind of nourishing for them, nurturing for the student to kind of retrieve to. For example, let's say you have a corner that it has some pillows that they could sit on, and it has maybe it has earplugs or headsets that they could use, where they can just go for 5 minutes or even 2 minutes, just to be able to help them get the peace that they need if it's too loud in the classroom for them. So maybe they can just they could just go in the corner and read or be quiet, or whatever works for the student and the teacher. That's a one-on-one thing that you've got to figure out. As long as the child has a quiet space to go to where they feel safe. The second thing is be mindful of sensory triggers. So, classrooms are often filled with sensory inputs that can be overwhelming for a highly sensitive child, like fluorescent lights or bright lights, noisy fans, or even strong smells from various things like art supplies or other things that are in the classroom that to the highly sensitive child may not feel comfortable with, because like a highly sensitive child who has high sensitivity to one of their senses, that just basically means that if you smell something, they smell it 10 times stronger. So if they don't like a specific odor, then that could really, really bother them. And it may not bother you or someone else who's not highly sensitive. But when a highly sensitive child is telling you that something is bothering them, please listen, because they're not making things up. They are really telling you that something is bothering them and something needs to be taken, it needs to be addressed. So making sure that they feel heard and understood is so important for their development in the classroom and for their learning. Because I know as a teacher, your intention is to make sure that all your students do the best that they can, and be as successful as they can be. So I'm sure it's to your benefit also that the child is set up for success in your classroom. So also consider that if there is a loud group activity going on, and maybe in that situation too, ask the highly sensitive child if they need any help. Do they need earplugs? Do they need noise cancellation headphones? Maybe even do they need to do some activity on their own and not be a part of that group? And I'm not saying that they shouldn't learn to participate in group activities, because that's obviously a very important skill to have. But I'm just saying, if they're going to participate and not learn anything, then you're not, not only are you putting them in a situation where they're not learning, but you're also triggering them. So it's a lose-lose situation, basically. So, just to sum up, it's just reducing the sensory overload whenever possible. This can greatly impact a highly sensitive child's comfort and ability to concentrate and learn. And third is offer predictability and routine. Highly sensitive children need predictable and secure environments, and having that routine gives them a sense of security. So when highly sensitive children know what to expect, they're less likely to feel anxious, for example. And you can help by providing a clear schedule each day, by giving them notice ahead of any changes or transitions in a routine. Even as simple as 5 minutes warning can be sufficient enough for the highly sensitive child to get mentally prepared for the change that's coming. Number four is use gentle discipline. This is so crucial for a highly sensitive child, because the minute you raise your voice or you talk in a way that is harsh, or you seem to be in a punishment mode or criticizing mode, then basically these children will become overwhelmed instantaneously, and they won't be hearing you. They won't be hearing what you have to say, what you're trying to correct them on, because all they're doing inside is they're just really suffering, and you trigger their overwhelmment. And when they're overwhelmed, like I said before, they're going to go into the fight or flight response, and this is where their logical brain goes out the door. So it helps if you could use more of an like a kinder approach, more nurturing approach to give negative feedback. Maybe use a voice that is very comforting and nurturing and gentle, and for highly sensitive children, gentle guidance goes such a long way. And they really listen to you when you are making logical sense to them. So when you take the time to explain in a gentle manner, by the way, they pick up on your energy, they pick up on every little change in your body. So you can't fake it either. You have to be able to really um, be truly in that mode of being gentle in everything, just not your voice, the language you use, your body language, your energy, everything has to be genuine. Otherwise they pick up that you're, basically in the punishment mode right now. So it also helps if you don't punish or don't correct them in front of everyone. Maybe pulling them aside so that you have some privacy, and you can, talk to them about what's going on, and maybe give them some positive feedback first. So use the sandwich method. We call it a sandwich method. I learned this method way back when I was in my 20s, when I worked for a corporation. They always said when you're giving feedback to someone, use the sandwich method, which means you give a positive feedback. In the middle is the negative feedback, and then you end with another positive feedback, so that it's not all negative that the person is hearing, including children. This is most important for highly sensitive children, and honestly, any child. I don't think any child learns from punishment as well as they learn from gentle, loving ways of correcting their mistake or their behavior. Number 5, encourage their strengths. As a teacher, you have so much power in a child's life. You have the power to give them confidence. You have the power to notice their strengths and recognize their strengths and give that feedback to them about what the child's strengths are, in your opinion. That helps the child gain confidence. That helps the child learn about their strengths, because sometimes children don't know what their strengths are. Actually, in all honesty, even adults don't know what their strengths are sometimes. So it's good for you to start as a teacher with the younger students, especially, to teach them about what their strengths are and to use them to give them compliments about those strengths, and really talk more about their strengths than their weaknesses, because we all have weaknesses. And I think it's crucial to recognize the strengths more than recognizing the weaknesses, because sometimes those weaknesses we can't really change. So why not build up on our strengths and work on getting more strengths, and downplay our weaknesses unless there's something that they're crucial in a person's life. And then, of course, then you can help them gain more knowledge, and to help them try to turn that weakness into a strength, for example, if it's possible. Every case is different, so can't really generalize. So just tap into their strengths by encouraging them in activities where their strengths can shine, and therefore they can keep getting more and more confident about themselves and about their skills. And then, of course, highly sensitive children are very creative. So this is where you can look out to see where their strengths are, probably in their creativity. So writing stories, or writing poems, or any other kind of creativity. Highly sensitive children tend to be extremely creative people. And then number 6, which is my favorite, is teach your students about somatic techniques. This will help them, regulate their emotions, regulate their nervous system, and when they're regulated, they're not in the fight or flight response anymore, and therefore their logical brain works. And that is a win-win situation for you as a teacher and for them as a student. If you don't know what somatic techniques are, I encourage you to listen to my episode dated February 13th, 2024. And the episode is called Regulating Your Highly Sensitive Child's Nervous System. Some examples quickly of somatic practices are, for example, singing for 5 minutes, humming for 5 minutes, shaking the body, similar to how a dog shakes his body when he feels that he's overwhelmed or stressed out. They quickly shake their body, and that's their way of resetting themselves, right? So we want to have the same thing. We want to have some practices that we teach our children to be able to reset their emotions, reset their nervous system. And then let's now talk about the importance of communication with the parents. So teachers and parents really need to have a very, very good open communication with each other, and really use each other to create the best environment for the child, the highly sensitive child, so that you are able to really be on the same page and work with the parent to learn more about the child if that's needed, maybe get specifics about how the child is highly sensitive, because every child is unique, and every child, even if they're highly sensitive, they could be very different from one another. And so just being able to get as much detail from the parent as possible about the high sensitivity, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what triggers them, what puts them in the overwhelmed state. That's really important, because if they're in that overstimulated, overwhelmed state, they're not learning. So that defeats the purpose of what you're doing for them as a teacher. So really a quick chat with the parents can give you insights into what might be affecting the child, and the parents have fantastic tips for helping manage the sensitivity as well, especially if they have worked with me or another parenting coach that helps them understand their child better. And then also, just keep in mind that teachers and parents working together creates a circle of support, reinforcing strategies that work both at home and in the classroom. So consistency in approach is crucial for highly sensitive children. So if they're getting the same approach at home and the same approach in school, then that's creating a really great environment for them to be successful in their life. And then next, I want to talk about fostering inclusion and understanding among peers, because it's important. Students in the classroom are just as important and just as impactful on the highly sensitive child's ability to be at their best, right? So they do get impacted, especially because of their empathy. They do get impacted by other people, other students as well. So it's really as a teacher, creating a classroom of inclusion and diversity is so important. It's so powerful. Just feeling that you belong, that your sensitivity is understood and accepted and welcomed and celebrated. That makes a world of difference for that highly sensitive child. And also, I think it's important for the other kids to learn about different personality traits, including sensitivity. And, this helps them when they grow up and become adults. Now they've had so much practice at being inclusive, understanding other people, and understanding different personality traits. Then they can they can actually be a better human being and build better relationships, and all kinds of relationships at work, at home, with their friends, with their families. So this is really, beneficial to the other students as well. And then this teacher can also have, for example, they can have a discussion about everyone's uniqueness and how some people are sensitive, some people, have, other personality traits that they could talk about, and what are the strengths about this, and trying to really highlight the strengths and the parts that you want to celebrate about. For example, let's take sensitivity. For example, they're great friends because they have a lot of empathy and they care very deeply, and they pick up on subtleties that most people will miss. So, for example, if one of their friends is not doing well, but they're not saying anything about it, and nobody else is noticing that there's a difference to them, but this highly sensitive child will pick that up, and they might go and give a hug to that friend, for example, if they think that would help, or they might be more understanding, or they might ask questions to help understand what's going on with their friend. And by the way, highly sensitive children are extremely smart. And so they will ask questions that even adults don't sometimes think about. So it's amazing how empathetic and you know, how smart they are for their age, and the vocabulary that they use for their age is incredible, and the thought process that goes behind it is also really impressive. So I would say that a really good way of doing this is by sharing stories, or using characters, for example, that embody sensitivity in a positive light. So when children see sensitivity as a trait that they can be celebrated, they're more likely to accept it in themselves and others. And then encouraging group activities where students can work together in ways that respect everyone's comfort level and foster mutual respect. So, as we wrap up, here's what I want teachers and parents to take away. Highly sensitive children can absolutely thrive in the classroom, and teachers have the ability to make a profound impact on their experience and self confidence. Teachers, you have so much power, and you have so much that you could be giving to these children who are highly sensitive, especially in their formative years, because this is where they're really influenced by the adults around them, and especially their teachers, and because they spend a lot of time with you. So please take the time to learn about high sensitivity and help these children be set up for success in life, because you as a teacher, you have so much power that you could use in a positive way. So by recognizing and honoring a child's unique temperament, teachers send a message that sensitivity is valued and celebrated. This not only helps the child feel understood and included, but also lays a strong foundation for them to embrace their strengths and approach challenges with resilience. For parents listening, I encourage you to share these insights with your child's teacher if they're open to learning more. And when teachers and parents work together, it strengthens the circle of support that every highly sensitive child deserves. So don't forget that. You want to create a circle of support for your child, especially with the people that are in their lives for such a long period of time every day. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to remind you that you have the power to create a bright and successful future for your highly sensitive child. Embrace their uniqueness, nurture their strengths, and provide them with the love and support they need. Together, we can pave a path to success that aligns with their sensitivity. Thank you for joining us today. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We'll be here with more insights and inspiration in our next episode. Until then, keep believing in your child's potential because they truly are extraordinary. Stay tuned, stay inspired, and stay committed to setting your child up for success in life. To book a private coaching session with me, please visit my website at parentinghsc.com.